years ago, when we came to Los Angeles, I really believed that the greatness of the Raiders would be in its future.
We back, man, for another edition of Around the Shield, man, and we got a special one today, man. We got a special guest in here, Mitchell Renz from the Raiders Report. If y'all don't even know, man, make sure to subscribe. I'm sure you already subscribed already, but my guy, Mitchell Renz, man, appreciate you coming through, man. We got to give you a round of applause, man. Appreciate you coming through, my guy.
No, man, I appreciate it. You know, I think one of the things that I really wanted to be able to do this year, 2025, is to be able to join more Raiders podcasts and, more people that are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing, right? And I was DMing y'all, literally it was yesterday or 2 days ago. I was listening to you guys talk about Pete Carroll being old and, a lot of the things that you guys talked about kind of, started to make me think and make me rack my mind a little bit around the video that I wanted to be able to do today on the Raiders on Pete Carroll. So you guys inspire me a lot too. And I wanted to be able to chop it up. So I was excited to do it. Appreciate the invite.
For sure, man. Hey, most definitely. Yes. It was a great show, by the way. Make sure to check it out. 50/50 show every Tuesday. Man, we had a really good conversation. We'll have a great conversation today. We appreciate everybody coming through. Make sure to clock in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We see people coming through and pulling up, man. And I already know what's on their mind, man. I already know what's on their mind. Oh, let me zoom out of this real quick. Austin, the Wanderer says, man, I really hope Spytek don't back out for the Jags position. Brady going to have to spin the block on these dudes. Yeah, man, I think that's pretty much what everybody's been talking about right now. And we'll get into that conversation a little bit. But, yeah, man, all I got to say is that's Kingsbury. Kingsbury, that's all y'all just the last time something like that happened was last year. Upstate New York Raider Dave in the building. He says it's happening again. We all got Raider PTSD. It better be us this time stealing Cohen and not the other way around. Embarrassing. Yeah, I hope. But we haven't even interviewed Cohen. I think he's focused on the team that has a quarterback. And we'll talk about that. Brandon in the building says that opened the good old days. Man, yeah, appreciate you coming through, man. My guy, man. Solomon says Spytek ain't back it out. People are trying to will it to happen. Maybe, possibly. I think people are nervous. I'll say that. We're nervous. You know what I mean? Even though Schefter announced it last year. Yeah, hey, look, it's cool. We'll talk about it. I mean, it happened last year, right? A lot of the insiders, all these, reputable sources said Kingsbury was the guy. He was the OC. 2 days later, where's Kingsbury? Oh, he backs out of the deal, Raider Way in the building says, salute, man. Appreciate you coming through. Drew Dizzle says, what up, Severe? He says, funniest podcaster in the biz. Yeah, he's hilarious, bro. Just tune in, man. He gonna have some jokes today.
Oh, you know it. You already know it.
My guy Raph in the building, man. What up, nation? Man, appreciate you coming through. Second funniest, Drew did, man. Mitch. Hey, he's a funny dude. Mitch is cool, man. He on it, man. He runs a great show on Raiders Report. If you haven't already, man, subscribe. Go make sure you head over there.
I'm the Oreo today, so I'm happy to be here.
Hey, man.
Also, looks like Liam at that job.
Man, I hate you, Raider Way, man. I really do. You just got to point out the obvious. All right? But I appreciate you coming through. Original Surfer says Spytek to Jacksonville.
No, Surfer Bob is that he's the troll. No,
you trolling. I've known him. Trolling. Come on, sir. Come on. Bob.
I've known him for a while.
Come on, Bob. Don't troll like that. Don't play with my emotions like that. Steve, Todd Munkin is on the way. Hey, you called it, Steve. The other day you were saying that there was a connection there with with Spytek. Hopefully that could be a possible, head coach GM tandem, but right now we're just hoping that it's official with Spytek. Let's not waste any time, man. Let's just get into it, man. The conversation right now that's going on right now is obviously we thought it was official with the GM, with John Spytek. Obviously his relationship with Tom Brady. Let's say if it is official, Mitchell or Mitch, what would you say?
All good.
What do you think of the move? What do you think of the move overall?
John Spytek, I personally loved it. He was my number one GM candidate that I had. I did a video basically like a week ago saying I think that the Raiders could hire him just simply because of all the connections that he had with Tom Brady. And this was somebody that I thought in terms of the way that he thinks about building an NFL team, it was exactly how I think about building an NFL team. I don't care. We talk so much about a quarterback, and believe me, we need a quarterback. But Spytek's mentality is we got to build in the trenches on the defensive side and then on the offensive side of the football. And he's done a phenomenal job being able to find talent, free agency, and the draft. He has a relationship for Tom Brady that went all the way back to 1999. He played 1 year with him at Michigan, wrote a book that literally was the Michigan life. And when you hear a lot of the things that Tom Brady talks about, why he was a successful NFL quarterback, he got a lot of help and he did a lot of the right things, and we're not going to be able to find another Tom Brady. I don't think that that's going to grow on a tree. But when you listen to what Tom says of why he was successful, about why him staying at Michigan and how he hates how kids are transferring all the time because you don't learn that system. You don't learn how to be a good teammate. You don't learn how to be a good player. You don't learn how to learn a system. And when you listen to what Brady says, a lot of the things that are, Spytek in that book, he kind of reiterates there. But the relationship with Tom Brady, he also went and said that Spytek was the number one reason that he ended up going down to Tampa Bay when he left New England. So believe me, I'm scared that we might lose Spytek with all this stuff going on with Jacksonville and, Liam Cohn here and there. The news of Robert Saleh going to the 49ers, that makes me a little bit nervous. But at the end of the day, Brady and Spytek do have a great relationship. And I do think that this is a really good opportunity for Spytek, where I know Jacksonville has Trevor Lawrence, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion for me. I wouldn't want to have Trevor Lawrence on that contract. I don't think he's a top 16 quarterback. And quite frankly, we don't have a top 16 QB. Do you think he's a top 16 QB? Why for yes and for no? I don't. He's good. He's good. He's better than Aiden. But he's not somebody where I'm going to tie my career to him for the next 6 years. I personally don't know if I would do that. And Cohen's had a lot of success, but we've seen it before. Guys can be OCs. Can you be a head coach underneath Shad Khan? We're going to find out.
Right. That's actually a good point. That's a good point. Severe, if you want to speak to that a little bit, because, a GM's perspective is a lot different from the head coach's perspective. Head coaches are trying to win now. And they know in order to win now, you need to have a quarterback. The Raiders don't have that. Yeah. But a GM is going to look not 1 year in advance, 2 years. He'd be looking 3 to 5 years. And having a clean slate which the Raiders offer, is something maybe a Spytek would probably want more. I mean, would you think that's true, Severe?
Yes and no. I mean, the job has its benefits and its disadvantages, like every single job. I mean, one thing we talk about with the Jacksonville Jaguars, now that the Liam Cohen thing is official, so let's it's smelling like Cliff Kingsbury all over again. That could be a real possibility. But one thing about the Jags is that whatever you think about Trevor Lawrence, at one point when Trevor Lawrence was coming out, he was generational. He was considered to be the next, can't miss, the surest thing at QB since Andrew Luck, basically, right? And he's had a pretty rough gauntlet when it comes to guys that are there to develop him. Like Urban Meyer, that was a disaster. And then Doug Peterson, that didn't really go that well either. So, but there's still talent to work with. Even without that, he was still, able to get to the playoffs and win a playoff game, which is something the Raiders haven't done in, more than 20 years. So I think that in and of itself, that foundation is there for you to see, hey, you know what, I can grow something from here. Some people prefer that to a blank slate because at least, a lot of people prefer the devil they know as opposed to the devil that they don't know. So right now, the quarterback situation here is still up in the air. You have Aiden O'Connell, but seriously, if you pick Aiden O'Connell or Trevor Lawrence, and I think Trevor Lawrence may be younger than Aiden O'Connell. If not, they're the same age. So it's not like you're getting some some youthful quarterback over here either. You're getting a guy that's essentially the same age, but has a much greater skill level, much more mobility. Plus, you pair that with a guy like Evan Ingram, who's can be a top tight end, and then Brian Thomas Jr., who can be one of the best wide receivers in the league. If you can get something out of Bigsby or out of Etienne, you have your three-headed monster with your quarterback, your running back, and a wide receiver, plus a move tight end. So I mean, there's stuff to work with, especially for a guy like Liam Cohen. And then if you want to pair that with a guy like Spytek, who they already have that relationship from their days in Tampa, I mean, it's looking rough right now for the Raiders.
Brandon says, look, we have to be honest. Tom Brady is 0 for 2, 3 for his choices. What is he bringing to the table again? Whew, man, hey, it's people coming from Brady, right?
Brady.
They come. It's still
every
Tom
person
Brady.
that loves the NFL would want to sit down in a room with Tom Brady, and I don't care if you were at that Tuck Rule game. I think if you had the opportunity to sit down to talk to Tom Brady, maybe everything besides jiu-jitsu or whatever the hell she got into, that's what I'm going to talk to Tom Brady about, right? I'm going to sit down, I'm going to talk to Tom Brady about the NFL, and I think everybody would.
No, facts, 100%.
That's what he brings.
Yeah, no, facts, 100%. But let me ask you this: Do you think that that the Raiders? You know what? We'll save that. We're gonna save that a little bit, but the Raiders kind of losing out pretty much on, the possible GM candidate. They lost last out on Ben Johnson. Do you think that they should have kept AP? I don't know what your take on. I'm not sure how you feel about how the AP situation went down, because right now it feels like the Raiders can't get the pick of the litter. They can't get who they want to get. And it feels like we're probably going to have another year where it's going to be like more of the same of last year, where it's kind of another rebuilding. The Raiders are rebuilding, if we're being honest. Do you think the Raiders made the right decision in getting rid of AP?
I would look at it a few different ways. I don't think you have to rebuild if you're the Raiders situation. And one of the reasons why I was hopeful that we were going to be able to go out and get Ben Johnson is because you look at exactly what the Commanders did to the Lions, where they had a blank slate, right? If I was Ben Johnson, if I was really confident in myself, I would want to consider myself an artist, and I would want that blank canvas. I want to be able to go out, pick my GM, I'm going to be the head coach. I'm going to be able to bring in my OC. I'm going to be able to bring in my DC, and I'm going to go up against these three juggernauts and Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and Jim Harbaugh. I get why he didn't want to do it, right? I totally get why he didn't want to do it. But look at what the Commanders did. They found a great GM in Adam Peters. You go out and get a great head coach in Dan Quinn. But defensive-minded coach Dan Quinn goes out and gets a former head coach, OC, and Cliff Kingsbury, and then they go out and get Jaden Daniels, right? Like, it can happen in 1 year. The Commanders last season had the most money in salary cap. They made some good draft picks. The Raiders have 12 picks right now. You got about $92 million in salary cap, the second most in the league. I liked AP, and I pounded the table for Antonio Pierce, and I told myself this offseason, I'm not going to think with my heart. I'm going to think with my head, because we all wanted AP to work, because I think every Raider fan deep down, when AP's up there screaming Raiders, you're like, shit, maybe I could be the head coach of the Raiders someday. Like, you know what I mean? And we all kind of looked at that a little bit, and we all rocked with AP. Do I think he was given a shitty hand? Absolutely. Right? I mean, we all were hopeful that when that season started, but I think all of us deep down was like, it's Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew at quarterback with Luke Getsy, right? It's not a pretty picture no matter what. It's a finger painting that your kid gives you when she's 5 years old, and you're like, it's really pretty, honey. But at the end of the day, you're like, I don't know how great it actually is. So to me, I thought AP, and I wanted AP to work, but the amount of in-game situations where he just showed you wasn't ready. And that, to me, was a difficult decision. And for a head coach that stood up there to the podium one day and said business decisions, I think all the Raiders did was a business decision, and they thought that they were going to be able to go out and get an upgrade of Mike Vrabel. That took a back seat because the Patriots ended up firing Gerard Mayo. You thought maybe you were going to be able to get Ben Johnson. Sounds like that was a lot of smoke. But Pete Carroll, he's a dinosaur. I get it. Todd Monken, whatever. I think no matter who the Raiders honestly hire this offseason is going to be an upgrade over Antonio Pierce. And to me, as a Raiders team, as an NFL team, you got to try to figure out a way to upgrade in every way possible. I didn't love the Telesco hire when it first happened. I will admit that, once it did happen, I was kind of trying to convince myself maybe a quarterback. He got Brock Bowers, got JPJ. But at the end of the day, the Raiders won 4 games and we don't have a quarterback, right? That's how GMs are looked at. That's how head coach are looked at. That's how teams are looked at. So I'm okay with the idea of moving on from Telesco and moving on from Antonio Pierce, because it sounds like Tom Brady's got a clear idea of what he's trying to do. And if him and Spytek can stick together, I think it's going to be, honestly, a pretty special thing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, man. It's not official yet. But let's talk about the head coaching candidates right now, because right now there is an ongoing coaching search. The Raiders have interviewed a few candidates, mostly defensive-minded candidates, not a lot of offensive. Do you think that has something to do with the Raiders not having a quarterback, or the Raiders just haven't really they went all in on Ben Johnson?
I think it's a mix of both, where – again, I'm only going to follow the reports, right? And that's what I do. I follow the reports. I try to put a puzzle together, and I think rumors are important. I think tea leaves are important. I always say, where there's smoke, there's fire. But to me, it sounds like right now Pete Carroll's the front runner. Pete Carroll is a defensive-minded coach. I think what the Raiders are trying to do is get Pete Carroll, and who's going to be 74 years old. And we know that that's an old man, right? But I'll say this. I hope I look that good, when I'm 74. And I always joke, my fiance, her dad, he's a black guy, and he always looks at me. He's like, yeah, black don't crack, right? He's 70 years old. That guy looks like he's 55 years old. I don't know. Pete Carroll's got some bloodlines that we don't know about, but he looks phenomenal for 73 years old. We got to be able to give him some credit there. But I think that's what their plan is. They want to go out and they want to get a defensive guy, and then they want to try to find another defensive dude that maybe can take over. We always hear the term bridge quarterback. I think we honestly got to talk about bridge head coach, because Pete is 74, right? Even if Pete Carroll is the perfect match for the Raiders, how many years do you give him? 3? 4? I mean, are we going to let him get up to about 80 years old? I don't know. And I also know it can change, on a dime. So I think they're bringing in a lot of these defensive minds, because Pete's a defensive mind, and they want to maybe find somebody that would work with Pete. And if they miss out on Pete, they can maybe bring somebody in. I was originally told that they were trying to do Pete Carroll, bring in Robert Saleh as DC. Saleh would be able to take over for him. They were going to try to bring in Mike LaFleur, because there's a good Saleh-LaFleur relationship there. And LaFleur's the OC for the Rams, doesn't call plays there, and could call plays over here for us. But, now, like I said, now Saleh's going to the San Francisco 49ers. So I don't know really what the Raiders' plan is. I would love Todd Monken. Todd Monken is the candidate that I think would be best suited for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that, and there is a connection between Monken and Spytek. I mean, severe. I mean, now that we know that that combination is not going to be there with Saleh going to the 49ers. I mean, what does a contract look like with Pete Carroll? Because if you give him like a 4 to 5 year deal, you're literally going to pay him until like 80. He's approaching 80 years old. 2 years.
74 to start the year.
Reportedly, AP's contract was only 2 years. So people are kind of we don't know the official numbers, but people have said that it's two years. And technically, that's probably what you would probably want to give a 74-year-old head coach is a 2 year deal, because you don't know how long he's gonna, want to coach. Let's say that. Let's keep it. Keep PC.
Or breathe, let's be honest.
Man, look, the very most you can give him is 3 years. That's like the very most you can give him is 3 years, because and that's just to like be respectful, to not have him after his first year immediately go into a lame duck season. So you give him that 3 year. Ideally he never sees that third year. He leaves after the second year. You already have whatever the successor or whatever succession plan that was laid out in the interview that had to be laid out. Let me make this. If he goes into this situation and there is not a clear succession plan in place, that was a failure. You failed. Fact. Pete Carroll failed. Tom Brady failed. Mark Davis, everybody involved with the process failed, because you cannot rest your hopes on a hope and a prayer, and that you'll find somebody that can hopefully you can hire and that can be that successor. He already has to be identified. He already has to be somebody that will be willing to have that role, and that you think has the traits that would be able to turn into a head coach in the future. We've seen that happen twice already with Bill Belichick and Jared Mayo. That failed. We saw it happen with Sean Payton and Dennis Allen. That failed. So the track record on succession plans ain't looking good right now. It ain't looking good. And say what you want to about Pete Carroll. This man is one polyp away from having to retire. He's a checkup away from having to shut this thing down. So if you don't have somebody waiting in the batter's box, bro, you're done. You're cooked, through, finished. So I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of as soon as you hire a head coach, you have to be looking for your next head coach. Like that situation doesn't work. And while I already said, look, I was against all these firings. I just said the impression that these firings leaves on the Raider Nation, on the Raider organization rather, is not a good thing. And we're dealing with those repercussions and ramifications right now. And what we did with Antonio Pierce is essentially what we did with Derek Carr, where we got rid of him. Was he the best? No. But we got rid of him without having a clear plan in place. We had an idea of a plan. What did the current president say? I have concepts of a plan, but we didn't have an actual plan. And that's where you run into some trouble.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with you, man. Like, sorry, it's your show. I gotta shut up. I'm used to just being able to talk. No, you got it.
No, you got go ahead. You the guest, man.
I was saying, like, I talked today about, I think Pete Carroll is the riskiest hire that the Raiders can do. And I think a lot of times, like, we look at Carroll, and don't get me wrong, resume-wise, he's got the best resume out of any candidate we have. Got the most wins, got the longest tenure. And I think Pete Carroll by himself, let's be honestly, if the Raiders hire Carroll, I'm not going to be upset about it. There's really not a candidate out there that, if the Raiders hire, maybe like Vance Joseph, right? Like, if that one happened, I'd be like, what the are we doing right now? Like, that would make me have a mild meltdown. And I agree. And I actually love the comparison of like the Derek Carr thing, because I do think it was the right move to move on from Derek Carr. The bad move was trusting Josh McDaniels that he was going to be able to find us a replacement, and he signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3-year, $72 million deal. That was a dumb, idiotic thing to do. But to me, Pete Carroll is the riskiest hire, because for the Raiders organization, you got to get 3 hires right. We can't even get 1 hire right. And we're going to try to go get 3, because you got to be able to hire Pete Carroll. That needs to work. You need to find the guy that's going to take over for Pete Carroll if you're going to give him your predecessor in a sense. And then if one of those guys isn't your OC or DC, you better hope who that offensive coordinator that you bring in can be that guy. Because, and again, like I really wish AP could have worked out, and I would have loved to see what AP would have looked like with Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, the writing is right there. He had the right idea. We just couldn't figure out a way to end up getting it done. And I don't want us to fall into that trap yet again this upcoming season, but that's what happens when you don't have a quarterback. I love Aiden. Aiden's going to have a hell of a career. He's going to have a long 12, 15-year career like a Brian Hoyer, but nobody wants Brian Hoyer to be a starter. Aiden is just a unbelievably intelligent QB like a Fitzpatrick, where he's going to be able to pick up a playbook and he's going to be able to memorize that SOB, and he's going to be able to have a great practice scheme, which is extremely important for a lot of NFL teams to have a good backup QB. That's what Aiden is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But no one's coming here to coach Aiden O'Connell. Like, it's not happening.
Right. No, it's not. It's not. And it's showing. I mean, think about what Ben Johnson said in his opening presser when he got hired. Like, he literally was like, this is a place I want to be. Obviously, he's going to say all the right things, but he was being completely honest. And where he kind of laid out the points on why he chose the Bears is because he knows you have to have a quarterback. In today's NFL, wins are correlated to you having a guy at that position. And it shows. Just the teams that don't have a quarterback or have a bad quarterback situation don't win a lot of football games. Greg says, Kingsbury. Would y'all consider him as a head coach?
No.
Depends. What about this? I talked about this today on my show. If I got to bring in just Cliff Kingsbury to be just a head coach, my answer to that is no. I wonder if the Raiders, and honestly, this would be a smart thing for them to do, because what I don't understand is if you're all in on Ben Johnson, if Ben Johnson's your number one guy, well, then why aren't we looking at more young offensive coordinators? Why aren't we looking at a Joe Brady, a Cliff Kingsbury, a Liam Cohen, right? Why do we go from 38-year-old Ben Johnson to Pete Carroll, who's 74? Like, quite frankly, those plans don't make any sense. Like, that's me saying, hey, honey, I'm going to go out car shopping. I'm either going to get a Lamborghini or I'm going to come home with a Honda Civic. Like, the Honda Civic is reliable. I mean, the Honda might last longer than what Pete will, but, but that's the comparison there. Like, to me, if we're going to bring in Cliff, I would want the Raiders to bring in Pete Carroll as an assistant head coach. And somebody might say, well, why would he do that? He's an advisor right now in Seattle. But also from 2010 to 2023, he was an executive on that Seahawks team. Like, I think Pete just wants to be a little bit more involved and let Pete be this assistant head coach. I don't even give a shit. Give him the head coach title.
Thanks.
And then Cliff comes in, assistant head coach OC. And when Pete realizes and he looks down at Father Time and he's like, holy shit, I'm 75. And we just say, all right, it's Cliff's job then. Like, right. I would feel a lot better about that plan than just bringing in Cliff Kingsbury and letting him do what he did in Arizona.
Right, facts. Well, how old was Marvin Lewis, by the way? He had that advisor role for AP. Let me look that up real quick. But before I even get into that, man,
he won, is my guess.
Space Beast in the building, man. Appreciate the super chat. He says no Gruden, no Carr, no Rodgers, no Adams, no Mac, no Pete. Run down Carroll. This is my opinion. Mac Mo 1993, man. Appreciate the support.
Marvin Lewis.
He's 66.
66. But I mean, like, when you think about all the people, Antonio, I know, but think about all the people AP brought in last year for help, which I love that he did. You bring in an old man like Joe Philbin. You bring in an old guy like, what's his name? Coughlin. You bring him in. I mean, you put Coughlin and Pete Carroll next to each other in the same room, and people are going to wonder if we can serve solid food at the Raiders facility.
Man, but you know what? I think Pete Carroll, he's older than Coughlin. Is he older than Coughlin, or are they same age? Or Coughlin's older? I know Coughlin looks older. We can all agree on that, but I think
Tom Coughlin is older. I think he's 70.
Coughlin is 78.
Okay,
70. Damn.
70.
Ooh, my bad, Pete.
Going to be 79 in August.
So,
jeez. Oh, my bad.
So Pete Carroll is closer to Coughlin's age than he is to Marvin Lewis's age. This is what you're telling me.
Yeah, basically.
I think that math checks out.
Basically.
I'll trust you.
Steve says, I saw that Carroll's son parted ways on the 17th with the Panthers. I don't know if I'm all into hiring staff that's family, because what happens if they suck, especially since Pete got 2 years. Well, look, the latest that we heard about Pete Carroll, because he's only interviewed with the Raiders and the Bears, and the latest that we heard, there's some probably an agent putting it out there to create some leverage that, there's interest in the Cowboys job, but I don't know if the interest is mutual. Maybe it might be a sign of like, hey, I'm not going to be here for long. That could be this situation. But do you see the Raiders interviewing more candidates? Because so far they've interviewed almost like less than.
They've interviewed Ron Rivera, Ben Johnson
candidates?
Technically they've interviewed Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson. They've interviewed Ron Rivera. They've interviewed Robert Saleh, and they've interviewed Pete Carroll. Those are technically the only people that they've actually interviewed. They requested to interview Monken. They requested to interview Spagnuolo, and they haven't done that yet.
I thought they did.
Spags is the only one.
I thought they did virtuals with Spagnuolo. I think they did virtuals with Spagnuolo.
Yeah, they did.
Virtual with Spagnuolo.
Did they?
Yeah,
okay.
Virtual.
And then
maybe they did the virtual.
They interviewed Vant Joseph, but
Yep.
I don't know. I wouldn't be big on that one.
I'm cool on.
But I mean, a lot of people kind of talked about. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but this is the take on Spags. It's like, hey, if you grab Spagnuolo as a head coach, you make a divisional rival, the Chiefs, weaker because they lose one of the best defensive minds in football, defensive coordinators. You make them weaker, and you put him at head coach and see if it works out. You know what I mean? Like his first stint didn't go well, obviously, but let's see if it goes well with the Raiders. What do you think of Spags with the Raiders?
Kind of scares me. I'm not going to lie to you. To me, I don't want the reason that we hire somebody is to make another team worse. Because if it might make the Chiefs worse, but if it doesn't make us better, then it doesn't really matter, right? So right. I think out of all the candidates out there, I understand why they want to look at a guy like Spags. And I think right now the NFL is a little bit of a copycat league, and you're seeing a lot of these coaches have a success in that second tenure. Look at Dan Quinn. He's having success right now in that second tenure. Andy Reid is having success in that second tenure. And, sometimes you got to lose a job to learn a little bit and reflect and do a better job going forward. But at the same time, for us to go from a name like Mike Vrabel, who was another one, he's about to get he got his second chance. But for us to go from Ben Johnson to Steve Spagnuolo, again, I'm sorry, but my nuts are blue from all the kicking they've been getting recently. And that would just be another that we would add to the list. I don't want it. It would, man. It would hurt. I would not want Steve Spagnuolo. It would be one that I'd have to wrap my mind around. But don't get me wrong. Come March, I'm going to be that Raider fan. It's like, Steve Spagnuolo is going to take us there. You know what I mean? And that's right. Off season for the Raiders is more fun.
Well, hey, if we're being honest, the candidates out there, they're not a lot of options out there. And
Cliff, Joe. To me, I know. You give me that look, but I want a young offensive mind.
But yeah. Real quick, Mitch, how and Severe, you could probably chime in on this. How did the Raiders go with Cliff after what he did last year? Do you not think the Raiders?
I don't. Yeah. If anything, I want to hire somebody who's smart. He proved that he's smart.
Yeah, true. I mean, I will say this about coaches on their second tenure. There are two guys you mentioned that that had success. I don't think Vrabel's any good. We talk about that another time. But Andy Reid went to a Super Bowl with his first team. Dan Quinn went to a Super Bowl with his first team. So, generally, the best indicator of future success or future behaviors is past behaviors. And you had two guys that were with organizations that went to Super Bowls and they won. Their issue was they just couldn't get those teams over the hump. Like Steve Spagnuolo, he never showed at any point that he had the ability to be a winning head coach. That's why I'm kind of wary with him. But with the Raiders, they need to open this thing up. There are other candidates out there. Now the only thing I can think of is that they're getting through back channels or through intermediaries that these people do not want this job and that it's not an attractive job to them. So that's why they're not going to, go through the embarrassment of putting out a formal interview request for it to be turned down by the candidate. Because there's Bobby Slowick. I mean, Bobby Slowick is a guy you should be talking to. Joe Brady is a guy you should be talking to. Mike LaFleur is a guy you should be talking to. I've mentioned before. It's like, heck, I'd talk to Zach Robinson. I'll talk to Clint Kubiak. I'd talk to interview all of these people. There's nothing wrong with at least interviewing them. Like, there once upon a time, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they took an interview with a young guy as a Rooney Rule, as a matter of fact, by the name of, he was only 1 year at DC with Minnesota after being a DB coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They already had a guy. I think they were going to hire Chan Gailey? I forget, but they were going to hire somebody else. And they only took this interview as a Rooney Rule, and the guy came in the interview, locked in, knocked their socks off, and now he's been their coach ever since. His name is Mike Tomlin. So if you don't cast a wide enough net, you're not going to catch any fish. And we're not casting a wide enough net. We went from young stud OC to, like, a guy old enough to be his father. Like, and I understand why we're looking at all these DCs. This is probably this is a Jed Hughes thing, but I'm sure it's also a Tom Brady thing. Because if you hear Tom Brady talk about Bill Belichick, who was, the main coach that he had most of his success with, talk about how even though he was a defensive coach, he knew a lot about offense and he was able to contribute to offensive game plans. But that's not the typical coach, right? Like, Bill Belichick could talk about weather patterns, wind patterns in the state. Like, he knew he was that detailed of a guy. You're not going to get that with every single defensive coach. So, like you're trying to rekindle some past chemistry. Like, the league has moved largely away from that now. So you have to adjust. And it doesn't seem like as an organization or even within this search, we have shown the ability to adjust.
Man. Shots fired at a couple of people, more than a couple. But Raider Ray says Cliff and Pete as head coach. I don't think Cliff would want to take a job where, I think you kind of said it best, Mitch, where you like have, Pete as a head coach, or he said Pete as an advisor, and then, Cliff as head coach.
Cliff's not going to come. He's not going to leave his great spot right now,
right?
Unless he's a head coach. Like if he's the head coach and Pete's the assistant to the regional manager, like, sure, like, we can go that route. But, like, he's not going to come here if they're equal parts. I also don't think that that's a smart thing to do. Like, I think you got to have a clear head coach. I think that you got to have a clear guy that's got his vision. Now, you can all think the same as Spytek, Tom Brady, and that. But I think you have too many cooks in the kitchen. And that's honestly been, I think, the Raiders' biggest problem when you look at their team in terms of, like, them falling apart at times at the end of the year. It's because you got John Gruden and Mayock guys paired with McDaniels and Ziegler guys paired with AP and Telesco guys playing all these different schemes. And it's just, they're throwing a whole bunch of stuff. Like, if you go into your spice cabinet tonight and you put everything in your spice cabinet into your food, I want you to tell me how it tastes. Probably doesn't taste very good.
Right. We'll see, man. We could keep going with this head coaching search. I mean, I agree with
Deion? What about Deion?
Deion?
I said Deion is the safest hire Mark Davis could do. If you knew for a fact you could fix your quarterback spot, he's going to bring Shador. And if you knew for a fact that win, lose, or tie, you were going to make enough money where you could be the number one team in terms of money. We know the NFL cares about it. Like, you're telling me right now, Roger Goodell want Tom Brady and Deion Sanders and Shador to be good? I'll tell you this. That's the number one selling ticket. Primetime games. We see how much help the Chiefs get from the refs all the time. We saw how much help Mahomes and even how much Brady got, right? The tuck rule doesn't even exist if they don't want the Patriots, I think, to be good. But, like, you see that kind of stuff. And I do wonder if that stuff matters, right? And I also think planning is a big part of anything you do in life and in the NFL. If you're the Las Vegas Raiders and you got $92.5 million, 12 draft picks, standing here right now, and I tell you, for a fact you're getting Shador Sanders in round one. You can plan free agency. You can plan the draft. It doesn't force you then to sign a Gardner Minshew to a 2-year, $25 million deal cross your fingers you're going to get Jaden Daniels. Then you don't get Jaden Daniels. And now we're back to Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell again. Like, I get how scary Deion Sanders is. Totally get it. But I think if people actually looked at his resume, and if you compare his resume to some other very well-respected coaches out there in their first 4 years, and I get it, it's college. It's I think Deion, all I'm saying is I'm not saying he's like the number one name to go out there and get. But I think it's something that we need to revisit. If I told you Deion Sanders or Steve Spagnuolo, who are you picking? Like, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to go with Deion Sanders.
Going Deion.
But look. Let me say this about Deion. The problem I have with Deion is what is it going to look long term? It's almost like Pete Carroll, but for different reasons. Pete Carroll, we're talking about his age.
You don't think he can do it long term?
It's because he's never shown that. Everywhere he's went, he hasn't been there long enough to see it through.
Sure.
He's always looked at the grass is greener. He's always been the grass is greener on the other side. And his main motivation, which you can't blame him, is his sons. But what happens if it doesn't work out with his son? What happens if the Raiders don't draft his sons? What happens if
they will?
His sons
Shador's going to the Raiders.
What happens if Shador?
If Deion's there, he's going.
And what happens if Shador is trash? What happens if Shador makes mistakes and he doesn't hold them accountable? That stuff matters in the NFL locker room. I would think.
Oh, absolutely.
I
think though they would bridge him though.
Go ahead.
I think they would bridge him. Like, I think when you listen to the way Tom Brady talks about how he develops a quarterback, he wants a quarterback to sit for a year. And I think you could bring in let's just say a Justin Fields or a Sam Darnold or whatever on a 1-year rental. I know I'm not really big on Sam Darnold. I'd be interested to see Justin Fields, because if I've learned anything, Luke Getsy's just horrific. And I would just be curious to see if Fields would be decent for 1 year, bridge it out for Shador Sanders. Anyway, but like,
to the wrong guy.
I also think you guys don't like Fields.
I do. Justin Fields is he's not a good quarterback, bro. He's not a good quarterback.
I think if you put Fields in Todd Monken's system, I think it would be interesting.
Maybe with Monken.
Yeah, I'll be real. I'm really only Fields and Monken. I made like 3 videos today about Monken, Carroll, and Deion. So that's why like all the shit's in my head. But like, you could bridge it out with Shador. But I also think like we're looking at a new realm of NFL players where, let's be real, like NFL players now have more power than they ever have before over teams. And we're seeing players, I'll call it meme money, where you're seeing these kids that are coming up through college now, they're getting NIL deals. They're going to want meme money. You're telling me an NFL player is going to want more primetime games, isn't going to want his social media to blow up, is he's going to get brand deals in Las Vegas, no state income tax. Like, I get Deion is scary, but this new age of these players that are coming up, Deion can talk to these guys. And honestly, I think people would want to play with Deion because of the simple fact of guys want to get paid. And you go to the Raiders, you play with Deion Sanders, you go there with Tom Brady, you're getting paid.
Yeah, no, because your main thing is the business side, and I could see an owner wanting a guy like Deion just based off the business. But if Mark is also trying to win on the football field, and he has the right people talking to him and letting him know how this is going to work and how this is going to look long term, then they're probably going to let him know, like, hey, Deion probably has other motivations, other ideas on how he wants to be a head coach with the Raiders. He might be looking at the Raiders as a catapult to take him somewhere else. Which,
where? What would be a better? Like, in all honesty, if he wanted the Cowboys job, Jerry's delusional enough where Deion, I honestly think, could call him up and say, hey Jerry, I want the job. Like, I think that's the only other job that he would ever consider to be a better job. And I said this the other day. I mean, I live in Dallas, right? Like, I'm around Cowboys fans 24/7. I hear America's team. It makes me want to throw up. If there was a legitimate way that the Raiders could become the most popular team in like 10 to 20 years from now, Colorado is getting the amount of views that schools like LSU getting more views than Penn State, getting more views than Texas A&M. That's a short amount of time. Like, and I know that Deion's getting these players in college, and I think personally, if he stays in college, he's going to be one of the best college coaches because he can speak to these kids. But like, to turn a 1-11 Colorado program in a Power 5 year with all these changes going on, they went 9-4, and they were significantly better in 1 year. Like, I'm just saying, like, there's been other coaches that people talk about as Hall of Fame NFL coaches that have not done the things that Deion has done in his first 4 years.
I get you. I get you.
That's true.
I on it sounds good for me. It just sounds good on paper, but then I'm just like, man, if it happens, like Michael says, how would Deion at the Raiders guarantee his son is there? And I think that's what he wants.
Eli Manning it. He's going to Eli Manning it. Like, I think we are naive to think that if Deion takes over as a head coach, Shador's not going to be the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. Even if I think the Titans end up taking Travis Hunter based on their comments that they made, generational talent, and then like they're not going to let him go to the Browns. I mean, Deion has already said that, and I think Deion is a wordsmith of words, where he's the type of man when you listen to that guy talk, he knows exactly what he's saying. And he said the other day, there's a couple of teams I'm not going to let him go play for. Couple is 2. Number 1 is Tennessee. Number 2 is the Browns. They're picking 1-2. I think he'd be interested in a guy like the New York Giants. I think one of the smart interviews the Raiders did was Brandon Brown, assistant GM for the Giants, who is somebody who's very well connected to Shador and says, like, they love Shador. You bring in a guy like that, you talk to him, you maybe can figure out what the Giants are doing there a little bit. But, like, he's going to get him. And if a team were to draft Shador and Deion's the head coach, you're telling me Shador is not going to be like, hey, I'm going to go play with my dad. And yeah, maybe the Raiders got to give up some draft capital, but it wouldn't be nearly the amount that you'd have to give up, because at that point, they know that he wants out of there. Like, I know it's a weird, crazy situation, but we've seen it in years past. And if the Manning family can do it, I am certain the Sanders family can do it.
Oh, man, I hear you. I hear you. It just sounds like a classic.
You sound like Chugs. Chugs is you. Chugs is like you're just you're like you live in a different world of cupcakes, butterflies, and rainbows. But that's the Raiders world. As soon as you say something's impossible,
it is. It is.
Buckle up. What's impossible?
Because the problem with that is that the Eli Manning situation was a very unique situation insofar as it was still a quarterback trade, right?
Yep.
So you were still getting a top 2. So you weren't trading a skill player for a quarterback or potential future picks for a quarterback. You were still securing yourself somebody who conceivably you thought could be a franchise quarterback. You know, like they still ended up with Phillip Rivers. So it's a unique situation. And I mean, I just think that if you hire Deion, you know, one of 2 things can happen, right? Teams can be scared away from Shador and say, you know what, he's going to try to force his way out. Or they can see that as leverage. Like, I know Deion wants, I know Shador wants Deion. We're going to extract as much out of the Raiders as we can because we know this is a pairing. Like, generally, you have to do, like, all kind of reconnaissance and all kind of research and do all this stuff to figure out, hey, what are the teams behind me doing? What are the teams in front of me doing in the draft? If you're a team and you know the Raiders hired Deion Sanders, you don't need to do any research on what the Raiders are doing. You know exactly what they want. So you already know. And if you're a pick in front of them, you may be the only show in town. So what are you willing to give up to make this pairing happen? What are you willing to give up?
Are you asking me, like, actually what I'm willing to give up? And again, this is maybe just the naive person.
Like, that's what they're going to ask the Raiders.
And here's the thing. I think it's just like the Devontae Adams situation this year, right? When we traded him for a 3rd-round pick, which honestly we won that trade now. Like, a lot of people were like, oh man, that's not enough for Devontae Adams. But Devontae won it out. And I think as soon as that team drafts Shador's going to go, I'm not playing for you because I want to go play with my dad. And I think it's kind of a lame thing to do. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, it goes against everything that I believe in. And it almost makes me feel like I'm back in Little League again, where just because your dad's the coach, you get to play on that team. However, though, like, I just think that Sanders family is going to be able to do it because they're the Sanders. And, like, that's how people are going to look at it, where they're like, all right, yeah, that's Deion and Shador, and I would just take them off the draft board. But I hear you where it does make me nervous that teams are going to know, like, maybe a little bit of what the plan is or, like, what they're trying to do. It's one of the reasons why I like Todd Monken so much, because he's been able to prove that he can win with a quarterback as vanilla as Stetson Bennett. I get it. Georgia was stacked. but he's also been able to win with an athletic freak in Lamar. And Lamar's an athletic freak and all, but he's also playing the best football of his career. When you can make Lamar Jackson look even better than what he was, I think that speaks volumes of how good of a coach you are.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's segue real quick. I mean, we could talk about the possible head coaching candidates right now. The main focus, and this is the Around the Nation segment. This is where we talk about the conversations that happen around the nation, and the main conversation that's happened is everybody is watching how Liam Cohen re-signed with the Bucs, essentially pretty much taking himself out of head coaching consideration, or that's how it appeared. And then we find out that he, after the Jags end up firing Trent Baalke, I guess probably that was one of his things. He wants to bring his old guys in there, maybe Cohen. He ends up entertaining an interview with the Jags, and he tried to do it very, I guess he got caught up because he didn't want nobody to know about it, because the whole deal was if that the Bucs were, I think, gonna give him I think it was an extension, a raise. You just
they gave him a raise. He's like,
yeah. The only thing
they
is
gave him a raise.
Right. They gave him a raise, but the only thing is he couldn't take a head coaching interview with the Jags, and that's why he did it in a way where he didn't want nobody to find out. And now we're here, and now it kind of looks like, oh man, he kind of backstabbed the Bucs. Todd Bowles, he told him that his kid was sick. That's why he wasn't answering his calls and things like that. It's a crazy situation. And then meanwhile, this is how it connects to the Raiders. We kind of touched on it earlier. Spytek, he hasn't officially signed with the Raiders. And obviously with the memories we have with Kingsbury and how he kind of, oh, it's official, Kingsbury's the OC for the Raiders. And 2 days later, we find out he's not the OC. Now, hypothetically speaking, if Spytek goes to the Jags, right? He goes with Cohen. Does that make Telesco getting dropped even worse? That just firing him even worse? Because now you're the GM that you wanted is not there. Would you say that was a bad move? You know, hindsight is 2020. But if Spytek were to go with the Jags, is letting go Telesco a bad move?
No. I'm not a bit I was not all excited about Telesco, and again, and it sucks saying that because he did a great job getting JPJ and Brock Bowers. Like, you gotta give him his flowers there. They went best player available, which I feel like is something that I've been preaching for the mountaintops. When you got the amount of holes that the Raiders have had, you got to go best player available. We can't always just try to, unless it's a quarterback, that's really the only time that I think it changes a little bit. But at the same time, like, there are other GM candidates that I think would do a better job, right? Like Ed Dodds, for example. Ed Dodds has interviewed multiple times with the Raiders, and Dodds was a part of, and I think it's actually a sneaky name if Spytek goes out the window, where Dodds was a part of that regime when Jed Hughes hired Pete Carroll back in Seattle many years ago. Ed Dodds has got a relationship, a good one, with Jim Harbaugh. They were on the same staff many, many years ago with Al Davis. So Al Davis has been somebody that says that he has liked Ed Dodds, which I know speaks volumes to Mark Davis, but there's still other GM candidates out there that I think would have done a better job than Tom Telesco. And, Tom also he did good in the draft, but then we also missed really bad in some signings in free agency. I mean, you look at that re-signing by Andre James, that was a bad one. The signing of Gardner Minshew was a bad one. It sounds like the decision to start Minshew over Aiden O'Connell was a bad one. To go out and the hiring of Luke Getsy, and I've heard the Luke Getsy hiring was more of an AP thing, but we got to look at it as it's an AP and Telesco thing. Like, we got to stop being like, oh, that's AP and Telesco, or that was AP, that was Telesco. Like, we got to stop doing that. At the end of the day, this was arguably one of the worst football teams in the league, and they had a lot of money to be able to make some improvements. Like, I can't even tell you how many times where I was hoping that they'd do something. But I also will say that I almost wonder if they were told to, maybe save some of this money for this upcoming season, because they had a lot of money. And when you're a losing team and you trade away Devontae Adams, it doesn't make any sense for you then to hang on to Trevon Merrick, Marcus Epps, Stephon Diablo, Robert Spillane, Malcolm Kuntz, Adam Butler, all these players that are about to hit the free agency market. Like, you either extend those players already, or you offer them up in a trade. So the way that the Raiders operated this year was, honestly, I thought very not very smooth. But compared to what we've had, maybe it was smooth.
Look, I'm gonna say this, and I'll pass it to Severe. I'm gonna say this, and I kind of implied it with some of the questions I asked about AP and obviously Telesco. I'm asking about Telesco. I think the Raiders overplayed their hand because they thought they had a reasonably attractive job because they're in Vegas. There's no tax sales. There's no tax. There's Tom Brady. We have all this cap space, but we don't have the most important position on the football field, and that's quarterback, which makes it tough to attract the top coaches, the top options. And we might have gotten an interview with Ben Johnson, but at the end of the day, Ben Johnson used the Raiders, just like Jim Harbaugh was using other teams to get up on contract negotiations. And I think the Raiders didn't really truly evaluate themselves and their team, because think about it. This is going to be in my opinion, this is my opinion, and y'all could let me know in the chat. I think it's going to be it's going to be a rebuild year. It's going to be another tough year. If y'all want, if they were really shrewd, they could have kept Telesco and AP for another year, and then drafted a quarterback. They could have drafted a quarterback, and then that job becomes more attractive because now you have a young QB on the roster where maybe head coach can look at it and be like, you know what, I can come here and I could work with this. But there's nothing. We don't have that. All we can say is that we have cap space, Tom Brady, which we thought it was enough, but it's not. It's only enough to get guys to come into the building. Severe, I mean, what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, man, I think we're making all these moves and we don't have a solid plan in place. And that's the same thing. Like we like overplaying our hand is an apt description, because the main reason we fired Tom Telesco, in my opinion, was to attract Ben Johnson. I think that was job one. I think we put all of our eggs into that basket. And I don't think Ben Johnson ever had any real interest in the Raiders' job. I think when you get a call, when your agent gets a call from Tom Brady saying, and they talk on the phone for an hour, and he's telling his agent on why Ben Johnson should even talk to the Raiders, not even take the job, why he should even be interested. And then you spend 3 hours talking to Ben Johnson, and then he takes the job and he never has an in-person interview with you or the other team. That lets me know it was not even close. Not even a close race, right? If it was a close race, you take in-person interviews with both teams, and then you take some time and decide. He didn't even need an in-person interview because he had no real interest. It was a situation where Tom Brady calls, I'm going to listen. I'm going to be tutoring a young quarterback. I'm going to pick the mind of the greatest quarterback of all time, and it is a favor for a favor. And now we're in a situation where, like I said, I think the drop-off from Ben Johnson to Pete Carroll is a lot bigger than the drop-off from Spytek to some of these other candidates, some of these other GM candidates. Like Brandon Brown is a guy I really like. He's a guy that spent time in the Colts organization. He was director of player personnel under Harry Roseman with the Eagles. And I think he's been a guy that has impressed everybody in the Giants organization as well. I wouldn't mind hiring a young GM like that who is a forward thinker. Ed Dodds is a guy who's been a Raider, who's been saying he feels he is a Raider. He wants to come back and help the Raiders. That's a guy we identified a while ago, and he's been led on several times, right? He's been left off the altar at least twice now. So I wouldn't mind Ed Dodds. I wouldn't mind even the guy that's with the Chargers who was with the Ravens organization. I wouldn't mind him. Like, was it Chad Alexander? I wouldn't mind Chad Alexander. That's a guy. Anybody that's worked with Ozzie Newsome, you can have a spot in my front office. So like, there are other GM candidates, but the fact that that person is going to be tasked with having to find a head coach for a team that has had their two previous head coaches didn't even make it to the end of year 2. That's a tough ask. And after we fired Josh McDaniels, we were already ranked the worst, or one of the worst organizations in the league, behind only the Panthers. Now we turn around and fire Antonio Pierce in the most sleazy and embarrassing way possible. And then after reassuring Tom Telesco, or the reports going out there saying that Tom Telesco is going to be retained, and then him getting unceremoniously fired after that only makes us look worse as an organization. Like, we don't have a QB. Like there's very little attracting people to this team outside of cap space, no state income tax, new facilities, and Tom Brady.
Yeah, man. It's to me, I thought it's a tough situation. I see they were trying to swing big, but I think they overestimated themselves. And that just,
I like their GM search though. Like, I think when you look at each individual candidate that the Raiders brought in, they did have a plan. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh, they don't have a plan. Quite frank, I actually think that they do have a plan. And I think, unfortunately, the reporting, and I get it, I know how difficult it is to be a reporter. Like, and I'm not a reporter. I'm a fan just like both of y'all. Like, don't get me wrong, I can do this now full time, and I'm proud of to be able to say that. But like, I do think because like the reports were so like crazily off and we didn't like know where to go, I think people think that the Raiders don't have a plan. So here's why I think that they do have a plan. You first interview John Eric Sullivan. He's part of the Packers organization. The Packers organization has done a phenomenal job with quarterback development, and Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love and Brett Favre. Like, they've always had a quarterback. So I think it's good to interview somebody like that. Your next interview that you bring in is John Spytek, the guy they end up hiring, who obviously love him, think he's a great guy. Next guy they end up bringing in was from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and his name is escaping me right now. But, you know, that's somebody who, Sheldon White, I think is that name. Sheldon White comes from Pittsburgh, and that's an organization. They haven't had a losing season in 18 years, right? Like you talked about Mike Tomlin earlier. Like, that's somebody where you sit down in a room, and even if you don't plan on hiring him, like, let me talk to you a little bit. Let's figure it out, which is why I like the Spags interview. It's why I like the Vance Joseph interview, because, again, even if you don't want to hire him, I mean, if you want the job, you're probably going to put your best foot forward. And even if you get a 1% advantage on your AFC West rivals, like, go do it. Chad Alexander, like you said, Ozzy's one of the best to ever do it. One name that I'm curious why they haven't is like Trey Brown. Trey Brown's been somebody that's been kind of around some Raiders circles, another like very well young, respected guy. Brandon Brown, Shador Sanders, his ties. You said Howie Roseman. Like, I would love for the Raiders to be able to go out and get somebody that's worked underneath Howie's Roseman. Like, we're in Las Vegas. Let's roll the dice a little bit. You got to be aggressive if you want to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs, the Broncos, the Chargers. Like, you got to be able to do it. So, like, I know that it might seem like they don't have a plan, but I actually think that they do. And I like the plan that they're going, and they're looking to bring in a guy who can help them find a quarterback. I think it's why they ended up going with John Spytek. But I think also because they went with Spytek maybe indicates where the route they might go. And again, timing's everything. And I think the Sam Darnold rumors picking up recently are very, very interesting after the hiring of Spytek.
Oh, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. We got to go with Sam Darnold. But real quick, man, hey, man, appreciate the super chat from Raider Vision in the building, man. Appreciate you, my guy. He says, Vic Tafur just reported Mark and Tom aren't talking. Do you think there's already tension between the two? What is going on? Why the delay? Something is up behind the scenes. I really think it's Cliff Kingsbury, KK. But no, I think you're misinterpreting what Vic Tafur was trying to say. He was trying to say that Mark and Tom aren't talking to anybody as far as the media. Yeah, to reporters. Right. So that's why they don't have a lot of information to give out. But as far as the delay, yeah, I don't know, man. This is what the Raiders do. They always keep the suspense waiting. I mean, they did this with Cliff Kingsbury. You know, they did do that last year, and it was more to do with Cliff than the Raiders. I think they probably were trying to get something signed. But it is kind of interesting that we haven't really signed Spytek yet. And then at the same time, Liam Cohen I just looked it up right now. It's official. He just informed the Jaguars or the Bucks that that he's going to be taking the Jaguars head coaching position. And they don't have.
I do find it weird though.
Yeah, go ahead.
like Spytek though has already done like a podcast and based on like what he thinks that he would need to be able to do to be able to build the Raiders. So I find it interesting that he's already having those type of conversations and they don't think that the deal's going to get done. Again, you're talking about like if this was the only reason why I don't want to say I'm not nervous. I am nervous because it is the Raiders. And if there's one team where it's going to happen to, it's going to happen to the Raiders. But I also think like at the end of the day, like Spytek and Brady, like they go way back where if it is just a Tom Brady thing, and I think what Tom Brady's going through this offseason is something he's never gone through, where the Tom Brady name's, not good enough, where I bet every time he's ever done anything, whether it's been a quarterback job, whether it's been, him getting the gig at Fox, whether it's him getting a date on a Bumble or whatever the hell, like Tom Brady, like he's going to get that swipe every time. And I think right now he's not used to getting declined here a little bit. And maybe it's ruffling his feathers, but Spytek and him have a relationship of 25 years. They were college teammates. And even if it was only for 1 year, he's the leader of that Michigan team. Like those two have good, like really good relationship. Spytek brings Brady over to Tampa Bay. Like my college buddies, like those are my guys. Like those are the groomsmen of my wedding. And I'm not saying like that's how close they are, but when you are a part of a team, and I don't know if y'all played college sports, I did. Like I would never backstab any of those college guys. Now it's just me, but I'm hoping because they have that 25-year relationship where they go back to college, he's not going to backstab Tom Brady.
I mean, Liam might have something to say about that, but that's a whole different conversation for the day. But
sure.
But yeah. We'll see, man. Hopefully we'll hear some Spytek news. Real quick, man. We won't take too much of your time, Mitch. Appreciate you coming through. If y'all haven't checked out the Raiders report, y'all are crazy. Y'all need to check that out. I think you drop content pretty much every day. I mean, you got a show.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so we do. It's called the Raiders Report. It's on YouTube. Please, check it out. We got 184,000 subs over there. You're not always going to agree with everything that I say, but at the end of the day, like I'm going to put out content all day, every day. Put out a video every day on my channel for the last 5 years where, like my biggest thing is I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the best looking in the room. I'm not the funniest, especially, when Savir's talking about Pete. But like, I truly, truly believe that I hustle. And if you're somebody that just believes in, just going out there grinding every day and chasing the dream, like go ahead and do it. I'm very proud of what we've been able to build at Chat Sports. We got a lot of awesome channels. So I'm sure most people here are probably Raiders fans, but we've been able to build close to 60 YouTube channels over there, a little over 3 million subs. We do a lot of cool content. If any of y'all in the off season want to, I don't know, we drink, like we party once in a while, which I don't know if you guys know that or not, but if you guys ever get a little bit weird once in a while. What?
I mean, when you guys have those super chat contests, it's like, man, Mitch gonna get alcohol poisoning, man. He's like dropping the super.
I mean, I
don't know how you do it.
There's some days where and this is honestly probably the lamest thing I can say. My dad's watching the show right now, but I'm so good at getting effed up where I just like know what my body needs to get over it the next day. And like, I wake up every morning and I'm like, my mind is like, what type of Raiders content can I make? And honestly, I don't really have time to be hungover. And days like that, I'm hungover. I take some of my Panda Sups, BCAs, you get it going again. And it's just one of those things, you learn your body well enough. And I'm a professional puke and rallier at this point. So let's keep it going.
Mitch, man, appreciate you coming through, man. And we got to do this again. We got to collab again, man. Appreciate you coming through, man. Hey, look, dude knows his stuff, man. He's doing this every day. You heard him. He says he does this full time. So, he puts in that work. Mitch, till next time, man, we'll see you. We'll see you soon.
I appreciate you guys for letting me pull up. And, anytime I'm going to be making some content in the off season around, like, I always do Raiders content creators like mock draft. So if you guys are down to participate in that, I would love to be able to have you guys on, and I'd love to be able to, return the favor someday. It's a little bit more different for me just because I got to get it through like a whole bunch of other people at Chat Sports still, like Chugs and all those other dudes. But if you guys are down to pull up and, maybe get a little bit wet and wild, we can make it happen.
For sure, man. Just definitely let us know. Let us know. All right, bro.
I appreciate you guys. Keep killing it. You guys are doing a great job.
All right, appreciate you.
Man, appreciate you, man.
Peace.
Man,
Salute to
Mitchell
Papa Renz too,
Renz.
man. He said Papa Renz is watching, man. Appreciate you tuning in as well.
Salute, man. Appreciate everybody coming through. Make sure to click in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We still got one more segment left, man, and this is gonna be mano y mano. Severe and New England booster, you know, my guy, who also has a YouTube channel as well. Make sure to subscribe. This is gonna be a topic that we kind of touched on earlier in the show. It's gonna be about Pete Carroll if he's a good option. He hit me up, was like, "Hey man, I gotta talk to Severe on this one." And let me go ahead and get him in here. Hopefully he's watching. Let's see here. But in the meantime, man, Mitch, man, that was a good show. Yeah, we're gonna be doing plenty of mock drafts. We're gonna do plenty of mock drafts this offseason. And we're hey man, like we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Hold on one second. Yeah, all right. I think he's gonna be coming on soon. Give me just a second. But Severe, if you want to hit up the chat real quick. Man, the chat's going crazy, man. We gotta.
Yeah, I think we got a super chat. We got a super chat from Caleb Daniels. Who's your least favorite quarterback ever? For me, it's Andrew Walter, 2006, 2008.
Appreciate the super chat, my guy.
Yeah, facts. Nah, it is easily. It's not even close. Not even close. I would have preferred Andrew Walter over this guy, because if we would have took Andrew Walter, we would have kept Andrew Walter, it means we would have got somebody else, and that is Jamarcus Russell. I think it's got to be Jamarcus, man, because we passed on Calvin Johnson, on Adrian Peterson, and Darrelle Revis. They were all in that draft.
Right.
All of them were in that draft, and we chose with three. That's like three, first ballot Hall of Fame guys. And we ended up with the worst draft pick of all time. It got to be Jamarcus. It got to be Jamarcus.
Nah, definitely. I think it got to be Jamarcus, but because he's the biggest bust of all time is number one pick. Obviously, we could have got Calvin Johnson. Man, he said 2006, 2008. Oh. Man,
he said Andrew Walter. That's when we had Andrew Walter. We had Andrew Walter for those years.
That's an easy one. I didn't like Kerry Collins, to be honest with you. I think Kerry Collins was he?
Yeah.
That was like 04, 05 though. I don't know if he was there 06. But man, Kerry Collins used to get me mad, man. He used to have like bonehead interceptions. It was just tough watching him play, but that was just that's the nature of the Raiders quarterback situation back in the day. It was tough no matter who was out there. But then it kind of cleaned up a little. Jason Campbell he was solid. Like what was early 2010s or whatever. I think he was pretty good. He was pretty solid. But yeah, man. Hey, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate the support. Make sure to clock in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Momentarily, we'll be doing a little debate between New England Booster and Severe Raider. I'll be moderating as usual. You know, I'm over here just even though I disagree too, but for some reason he's like, I want to talk to Severe.
Look, man, I was gonna leave it at that. It's just look, man. People, hey, man, look. It's all good. I know what it is. I know what it is. People, I don't know. People, it's crazy. Me and Pharaoh can say the exact same thing, and people like, man, Severe don't know what you talking about. Like, what?
You don't have a way with your words, man. You're disrespecting
crazy.
Everybody.
Man. Yeah, man. I guess I'm not as smooth, man. I'm not as smooth as y'all, man. Pharaoh would be like, man, ain't no kind of man. Yeah, he's not a starting quarterback. I'm like, yeah, man, ain't no kind of. I don't really think he's that good. Like, Severe, what? You don't think he's that good? Like,
Ooh, hey, man. Hey, let this be true.
Crazy.
Delusional Raider fan, even though your name's kind of suspect. I don't know, man. But he says Bucks beat reporter saying Spytek is a Raider. Whew, because hey, man, my Raider PTSD, man, it's a real thing. Like I've seen everything, and hey, man, we got a special guest backstage. Hold on 1 second. We'll add him here in just a second here. 1 second here. But yeah, man, what do you think of that, man? Hey, Spytek might be official. It's possibly official.
Man, I seeing how Liam Cohen kind of handled this whole Jags Bucks situation, you know, ain't nothing signed until it's signed, and nothing official until it's official. So I'm not gonna get my hopes up. Backstage. But I think that's gonna scare people off. I think that's gonna scare people off. So you know, like I think he handled himself poorly. And that's going to be an awkward introductory press conference, bro. Awkward introductory press conference.
But hey, real quick, man, we got Jeff, New England Booster in the chat, man, in the building. And
what's up?
Hey, man, appreciate you coming on.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you clearly. Severe, can you hear him? I can hear him. Everything's good audio.
Yeah, I hear him great.
All right, perfect, man. Jeff,
man? I'll look up there at you. How you doing?
Jeff, man, you called your shot. You said, hey, I want to talk to Severe. You was like, hey, man, you moderate it. I got you. The topic, obviously, is Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, is he a good head coaching option? And you had something to say about this. I'll let you take it away first.
All right. It was just the other show, the 50-50 show you guys did the other day when Rundown was on there with you.
Right, every Tuesdays. Yep.
Kicking around the head coaching possibilities and such, and it's like as soon as Pete Carroll's name came up, I could just see Severe's face, just like I just want to know what is it with the age thing? I kind of don't get it. I mean, you just seem so negative because of the age thing with him. You know, I mean, my thought process with Pete Carroll is he's a proven coach. Mm-hmm. He's won a Super Bowl, been to 2, won in national championships. My feeling is if you want the best chance to get this team up and running and going in the right direction, I honestly feel he's your best option at this point right now, regardless of age. Age shouldn't even be an issue. It comes down to, can they do the job? Mm-hmm. And I think he can do the job, and I think he could do it and get this team going in the right direction. Yeah, he's here for 3 to 4 years. So be it. But if he gets everything going in the right way and the succession is set up for someone to take over when he finally says, okay, I've had enough now, and he's known for getting us back to greatness again, I just don't see where that's a wrong issue or a wrong thing. And you were just like so adamant about the guy's too old,
So I agree. Pete Carroll has a great resume. I think he will probably be a Hall of Famer as a coach. So let me ask you a question. So we're talking about guys with great resumes. Should we hire Joe Gibbs as our head coach? He has a better resume than Pete Carroll. Way better resume than Pete Carroll. So should we hire Joe Gibbs as a coach? Or okay, maybe you don't like Joe. Maybe you don't like Joe Gibbs. Maybe you don't like Joe Gibbs. Should we hire Jimmy Johnson? Way better resume than Pete Carroll. One more than Pete Carroll, at a higher level than Pete Carroll. Should we hire Jimmy Johnson to be our coach? Should we drag?
But they're not looking for jobs right now, though. They're not looking for. Pete Carroll's actively looking.
But would you hire those guys? Would you hire them if they were looking? If they were like, let's say Jimmy Johnson, like, no, what I want to get back into coaching. Would you hire Jimmy Johnson?
I think at this stage of the game for both of them, the game's beyond them now. They've been out of it for way too long. Whereas Pete Carroll's only been out for 1 year. He was still part of the organization for this last year too. So Pete Carroll's still fresh to the game. The other guys aren't even. They're not
Jimmy
even
Johnson's
part
been
of
around
it.
football.
Yes. Yeah, but
Jimmy Johnson's
from
been around
an
football.
analyst point of view. Yeah, from an analyst point of view.
He's around the game. We hired John Gruden when he had been away from the game for a very long time as well. And part of the justification was, he's still in the game because he was an analyst. He was still doing the work. He was still interviewing the coordinators. He was still doing all these other things that kept him abreast of what was going on with football. So like, obviously, That was a justification for Gruden. Why can't it be a justification for Jimmy Johnson? Second of all, I'm not hiring a head coach when the first question I have to ask you is, okay, who's going to be my next head coach? Right? Who's going to be my next head coach? That should not be the next. That should not be part of the plan. We should not be like you don't. Would you buy a car? Would you spend money and invest in a car for, like, say you have a business, say you have a trucking company, like, I'm gonna buy this truck, but I know it's gonna only break down in a few years, or it could break down in a few years, and I could be potentially truckless, or I could buy a piece of equipment. I know it's gonna break down in a few years. You want something that's gonna last as long as possible. If it's working and going well, you want to keep it going, right? You don't want that momentum to end. We've seen what succession has looked like in the past. Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, personally identified his successor in Jared Mayo. How long did he last there? 1 year, he's done. We saw it with Sean Payton, identified his successor, Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, who had head coaching experience in the past as well, was one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. Still, he's a guy that had Tom Brady fired up, cussing at him because of how well he schemed up his defense and how good those guys were playing. He was his successor. How much success did he have once Sean Payton was gone? Not a lot. Unceremoniously fired. So if the first question I have to ask you is who's the next coach, that's not the direction I want to go in. And then second of all is quarterback. We don't have a quarterback. Like, people talk about Pete Carroll's record. A lot of that was with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson he's won everywhere he's gone. To some degree, except 1 year in Denver. Other than that, he's had a winning record multiple places. So was that a Pete Carroll thing, or was that a Russell Wilson thing? Know what Pete Carroll's record was his first 2 years in Seattle? 7-9 both years. He took over a 5-11 team, went 7-9. Want to know the difference between that 5-11 team and that 7-9 team? Was the first year Pete Carroll got there. Guess who he got? Marshawn Lynch. And Pete Carroll's third year, he went 11-5. Guess whose first year that was? Just take a wild guess. I'm sure you know whose first year that was.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson. So what can he do without a quarterback? He's proven he can go 7-9 in one of the worst divisions of football. His first year, he won the division with a 7-9 record. And guess what? He beat all but 2 of his wins were against teams under 500. The second year, the same thing. I think maybe he had three. I think he beat all the wins were in the division except for 3. Only 2 of those other teams had winning records as well. So his first 2 years, he go without a quarterback. He goes 7-9, loses, but then he gets a quarterback and he wins. That's year 3. But he's not guaranteed year 3 here. He may be gone after 2. So then we're still left holding the bag, and we're in the exact same position that we were right now. Except we wasted 2 years where we could have potentially been letting a young head coach develop and go through those initial lumps as he learns on the job. And now that opportunity has been wasted, and you're starting from fresh. That's why it's not necessarily about his age. It's about how long I believe he can do the job. And when you're 74 years old, you're already going into it as the oldest coach ever.
73.
So, he's going to be 74 during the season. 74. So you're already going to be the oldest head coach of all time. Every game you coach, you're breaking a record. So it's not sustainable.
All right. Let's give Jeff a chance to respond. But Severe's made some valid points. I mean, Jeff, what do you have to say?
No, he has. I'm not saying he hasn't. All right. You talk about Jimmy Johnson and Joe Gibbs. Yeah, they were great at their time. But again, Jimmy Johnson's still in on it a little bit, being a commentator, or not a commentator, but being an analyst on Sunday shows and everything. But I don't think he can handle being a coach right now, the stress of it at his age. And he's had health issues. Joe Gibbs, trust me, Joe Gibbs ain't coming back in the NFL, even if somebody threw a boatload of money at him. He makes too much money with the NASCAR stuff, so he ain't going anywhere.
Right.
But again, I still think they've been out of the game for so long, and they wouldn't even be a factor in it right now. Whereas Pete Carroll would still be able to run this team And he could be here for 4 or 5 years. He could be here for longer. You don't know. Everybody's just quick to say he won't last long because of his age. I mean, he's definitely going to be the healthiest of the three in the AFC West. That's for goddamn sure. I mean, you got one guy that's going in for heart surgery. And the same guy getting his hip replaced. Andy Reid's one Twinkie away from probably having a heart attack. Or raising his cholesterol to a deathly level. Sean Payton, I don't know what he's got for issues. But I mean, and I think he's probably one of the few coaches that could come in here and strike some fear into the rest of these AFC West coaches and would be able to match up well against them. I don't think there's anybody else out there that could come in here and match up well against any one of those three right now, especially Andy Reid, because it starts with them and it starts with our own division.
Right.
If we can pull off a 3-3 in our division, I'm happy, because you know what? That means we're showing improvement, because we've been 0-6 against them this season. We came close, but we just couldn't pull it off. A guy like him would automatically put some respect back in this team. I'm telling you. Who's your thought of a head coach? Like, who would you want?
I already said, but the guy I'm hiring, if I could have anybody in the league, I'm hiring Mike LaFleur. He's a guy that not only has he coached under Kyle Shanahan and been a part of that success over there, but then he's coached under Sean McVay, been a part of that success as well. So he's a guy that we've seen Sean McVay disciples, right? We've seen what those guys do in the league. Matt LaFleur, who was Mike's older brother, and then Kevin O'Connell. We've seen Kyle Shanahan's successors. They usually have success. One thing we can't say about Pete Carroll is that guys that he's hired, they haven't gone on to have success at head coaching. None of them. He hasn't had one that he's hired that has had success as head coach. Not one. So we talk about
you're going to hold that against him just because he hasn't had disciples that went on somewhere?
But because the whole part of the plan is that, like, that's the point, is that if he's going to have to hire somebody to be the next guy. So if he hasn't shown the ability to hire a guy to go on to have success as head coach previously when he was younger, why do we think he can do it now?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the math ain't mathing, man. And you just said yourself, look, ironically, I said I don't want Pete Carroll because he's old. And you were like, oh, man, talk about his age. It was the first thing you said about Jimmy Johnson. It's like, oh, man, I think he's too old for this job. Like, come on, dog. Come on, man. That's the first thing you said. Jimmy Johnson's too old.
He's going to be a hell of a lot older than Pete Carroll.
I think he's 6 years. He's like 6 years older than. I think 6 years older than Pete Carroll, something like that. But still, if we're eliminating age as a factor, which is what you want me to do, you want me to eliminate age. So then
I'm not making you do it. You did it yourself. You do it the other day because somebody else threw out another name, and your first response was, "How old is he?" Or your first question was, "How old is he?" And they said 53. You even rolled your eyes at that one. It's like, what do you want, a 22-year-old kid taking over the team?
I think
it seems like every time somebody threw a name out there, your first question is, how old is he? What the fuck does it matter how old he is?
I mean, it matters insofar as how long is that guy going to be around. I'm good with Todd Monken. He's 59 years old. I'd be good with Andy Reid. He's 66 years old. I mean, I want a guy that can realistically be in the job at least 10 years. A realistic 10 years. Like Pete Carroll, realistically, if he has success, he's not going to be here for 10 years. I want a guy we can hire, and this is our guy at least for the next decade. We have our coach locked in, ideally for that amount of time. Not a guy that is, who was he brought Seattle back to relevancy, took them to a Super Bowl, won it, took them to another one, should have won that one. We're not going to even talk about that. He put this team back on the map. Was one of the architects or helped, him along with the GM whose name escapes me right now.
John Schneider.
Helped build one of the best defenses. John Schneider. Helped build one of the best defenses of all time, one of the best defensive nicknames of all time in the Legion of Boom. And even Seattle was like, yeah, man, you getting too old for this. We're gonna push you out the door now. Right? They did that to him. They said they didn't want him to be the lead guy anymore. Obviously, he still has an itch to coach. Obviously, because if he didn't, he wouldn't be talking to these teams. So obviously he still wants to coach. So if he wasn't even good enough for that team, who we did all of that for, we're supposed to take him here? And what makes us think that he strikes fear into any of these coaches with no quarterback, with a ragtag bunch on the offensive line? With we don't know who his offensive coordinators are going to be. Like I said, he hasn't shown that he can hire coordinators that can go on to have great success as head coaches. I think the one guy his best coordinator was probably that he hired was probably, I think he hired Brian Schottenheimer. I think Brian Schottenheimer was his hire there, but that guy hasn't even shown that he can do it at a high level for a long enough time. So we're putting all of this trust in the future of our franchise in the hands of a 74-year-old man who hasn't shown that he has the inclination to do it in the past. So why do you think now he can do it? It just doesn't add up, man. It just don't add up.
Real quick,
All
man,
right,
we
well,
got to address this super chat real quick. Hold on 1 second,
ahead.
Jeff. My bad.
Yep.
We got to
No
address
problem.
the super chat. Steve says, shout out to New England Raider Booster Club for pulling up. He says, I love P2, but until we get a QB, we'll never get a candidate with a good resume. So sorry, we're not getting Pete because Pete has a good resume. I mean, Pete is he has a great resume, probably the best resume out there. But it's just. I mean, Jeff, if you want to speak on Pete and why he is a great candidate, I know you mentioned that he kind of stacks up well with the AFC West, and then also go ahead and respond back to Severe.
He definitely stacks up well against AFC West, which I said. But my thing is too. You say you want LaFleur from the Rams. There's nobody even talking to him. So I mean, not on our list. You look at the list of who we're looking to interview. He's not even on that list. So, all right. So basically, right now, until you see that he's on there, he's not even an option at this point. So if it's not him, who's the next guy you want?
Todd Monken.
I know who I would take instead.
Todd Monken. I mean, I think we said this yesterday. But go ahead. I mean, I want you to go ahead and finish your point. But Todd Monken would be the guy I would want. I mean, you asked me if I could have anybody I wanted that was potentially a candidate. That would be Mike.
But I mean, yeah, no, I get
out of
that.
The people we've talked to, out of the people we've talked to thus far, yeah, out of the people we've talked to thus far, it's Todd Monken. But yeah, but I'll let you go ahead. I talked for a long time, bro. So I want you to go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I already told Pharaoh earlier. I won't come. I won't. No yelling. I'll be a good boy. If we would have done this Tuesday night, I think if we would have done this Tuesday night, I think I would have been a little bit more heated. I think I've calmed down a little bit since.
Do you think? Hey man, look. Hey, we want this. Hey, make your points, man. It's football here, man. I've been arguing in barbershop since I was 11 years old, man. So it ain't nothing.
I mean, I just honestly think out of everybody out there right now that's a potential for a head coach, I think he's the less risky on if he's going to be successful or not. Is he the less risky on how long he's going to be here? No, I agree with that. I'm not going to deny that because I know he's not going to be here for 10 years. If he is, that's awesome. Let's hope he stays senile if he's here for 10 years. If you just throw up his record against anybody else that's out there looking for a job right now, the only one that would even come close to him that's already got head coaching experience would probably be McCarthy, which would be the other one. And I kind of almost want to subtract his years in Dallas because of who he had for an owner that was always fucking things up for him there. So I would be more inclined to hire, if not Pete, then I would be fine with McCarthy too.
Right.
Because now McCarthy's going to be there longer term. If that's your issue, and I agree that would be the issue with Pete Carroll. He's not going to be there forever. But it's all about getting the team heading in the right direction and right again. And I just think that Pete Carroll, with his experiences being a head coach and helping running the team on personnel aspects too, would also probably answer our GM question in the fact that we could promote Chip Kelly working hand in hand with Pete Carroll doing this and bring in a top-notch offensive coordinator that's still available, or is even out there that we can make and move over. You know, that's my feeling too. You know, Pete Carroll can put the right pieces around him. You know, again, we're not an attractive team to come to right now, not at all. You know, what do we got to offer? All right, well, we got 100 and something million roughly in salary cap, depending on how we lay out who we're keeping, who we're cutting. All right, we got a brand new facility, it's beautiful. Okay, what else you got?
Yeah.
We got a rookie one tight end in the league overall, and he's a rookie. And we got Max. What else you got? No, we got the number 6 pick, and that's pretty much it. That's
Right.
it. You know, we're not going to get a quarterback at number 6. Those 2 quarterbacks are gone, so you can forget that. So you're not going to be able to start with a number 1 top-rated quarterback. You're going to have to wait until second or third round to get the quarterback for your future, if that's what you think you can get out of this draft. You know,
Right.
or you're just going to have to suck it up. You're going to have to stick with Aiden O'Connell for a season, or you're going to have to bring in somebody as a free agent that may or may not mesh. You never know. You know, could he turn AOC 12 around? Maybe. I'm not saying he can or he can't. That's still up in the air because you don't know what he's going to instill, or you don't know what any coaches are going to come in here and do with this team. You know, I'm 50. I'm going to be 55 in a couple of months. I've waited 40 something years since the last Super Bowl. I was 14 years old when we won the last Super Bowl. Saw the game. I saw us win all 3 of our Super Bowls.
Hey, lucky
You know,
you, man.
so
Man,
I've waited longer
yeah.
than some of the people that I'm on these channels with that are
Yeah.
older. They weren't even born yet. You know, I feel bad for the generation that's been a Raiders fan for the last 20 plus years or 20 years
Exactly.
that have only been alive for those 20 years. They don't know anything about a winning culture. They don't know about the Raider mystique unless they learn it from family or like us on these shows doing what we do to talk about the past, and which is why I'm passionate about, you know, the old school Raiders and the history of the team. You know, I lived through it. I knew what it's like to be there. I'm tired of fucking waiting. And I don't know if I can take that chance on an unproven coach coming in here to right the ship. Will they right the ship? Will we get complacent and say, fuck it, it's 2 years in, we got to get rid of them, which is the tendency that we have to do, you know, is to get just after a year or two that just don't mesh with what's going on, you know, whereas you can bring in a guy that can put us in the right path to get to where we need and give some respect to the name, the Raiders and the Shield, which right now we ain't respected anywhere in the league amongst any fans anywhere. And living in New England and having to deal with the bullshit Patriots stuff that I went through for 20 years when they were great drives me absolutely nuts. So I can't even imagine what it's like, you know, for being a fan of the Raiders living in Oakland or LA or Las Vegas and having to deal with this. I know what it was like for me for 20 years. It was pure hell. It still is. I still like the Patriots. And that's the tough part about me right now with Brady being in charge of this in the manner that he is.
Right.
I'm getting over it, but it still doesn't mean if you walked in my room right now, I wouldn't still punch him in the face because I hate him that much from his playing years. Which is why I was so against McDaniels coming in. And we never should have hired him in the first place.
Man.
And I said when we hired
Thanks.
him, the day he said, I'm taking the job, I accept the job, he set us back 5 years plus. And where are we now? We're into year 3, almost going into year 4 of when we hired him. And where are we? We're a long way away from being relevant again. And I'm not going to be alive much longer myself, more than likely. Can I wait another 40 years for a Super Bowl? Hell no. I'll be in my 90s by then. I ain't going to live to be 90s. Look at me. I'm 6 feet. I weigh about 355 pounds. I ain't going to be here until I'm in my 90s. If I do, it's a miracle. You know, I can't wait anymore. This is the time. We've got a guy that we can bring in and get this going. And we're dragging our feet, and it's driving me freaking nuts. And some people are just hooked on the age thing, how long you can be here. I don't care. Can you do the job? Hell yeah. Then fucking hire them. I don't know why we're waiting.
Right. I hear you. I hear you, Jeff. But let me ask you this: what is a contract? What does a contract look like with Pete Carroll? What are you offering them? Typically, when they give out these contracts, they're at least 3 to 5 years. The good ones, probably the ones that they probably secure maybe a 6-year contract. But what do you give a 73, 74-year-old, you know, possibly the oldest head coach in NFL history? What would you give him? Are you Mark Davis? Because the head coaching contracts are guaranteed. They're going to get every penny of that contract. Yeah. McDaniels is still getting paid. As much as you hate McDaniels, I mean, it's not my money, but Mark is paying that contract.
Thank God this shit doesn't count against the cap, because we'd be screwed.
Right. So what would you give a Pete Carroll then? What would that contract, in your opinion?
My opinion, 3 to 4 years. Just like you would anybody else, to be honest with you. I mean, I know they gave Gruden a 10-year contract, but that in itself, I never would have done a 10-year. I think a 10-year contract's stupid. Why are you going to nail yourself down for 10 years?
Right.
Because after 4 years, if it ain't working, then, your 4 years are up, you cut them loose. We're not going to renew your contract. I would go 4 years with Pete Carroll. I could see him lasting 4 years with no problem.
78?
Definitely.
Ooh. Huh? That would make him, at the end of that contract, he'd be 78 going into that fourth year on that deal. Man, that's tough. And
come on, dog. Come on, dog. Come on. Look, man. Be honest with you, man. As soon as Jeff said Justin Fields, man, my blood pressure is risen. I blacked out a little bit, so I didn't catch everything you said. So I heard Justin Fields.
As soon as I said what,
and I was just like, "What?" Justin. Look,
as soon as I said
Justin Fields,
I didn't hear what he said.
That's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother conversation. But my point is that it took Pete Carroll 3 years. 3 years to No, somebody in the chat brought Justin Fields. But it took Pete Carroll 3 years
I didn't say Justin Fields.
Yeah, somebody in the chat bring up Justin Fields. It took Pete Carroll 3 years to rebuild Seattle, or to get Seattle to a winning organization, right? 3 years. And that's with him inheriting Gus Bradley already. Inheriting Gus Bradley, who was one of the better DCs in the league at that time, with that cover 3 that was revolutionary, what he was doing with the cover 3 defense at that time. Him acquiring Marshawn Lynch, right? Hall of Fame back, and then luckily getting Russell Wilson, because they had hitched their wagon to Matt Flynn. So they were fortunate that they picked up Russell Wilson, and that he, exploded onto the scene as a rookie. And that's with him having one of the better GMs in the league. He will have none of that here. None of that here. He would not inherit one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. He would not. I think who else was on that staff? I think Saleh was already on that staff too, I believe. And there was another great defensive coach that was already on that staff. Like he inherited a great DC and Gus Bradley, who was a holdover from the previous regime, and then he had a great staff in place already. So it's like we want him to build all this stuff, but he hasn't shown that he can build it in the past, right? He hasn't shown it. His OC, Darrell Bevell, what did he go on and do? Nothing. Outside of when he didn't have Russell Wilson, he's been a failure everywhere else. Russell Wilson has gone to multiple teams and had success. So the key to that team apparently was, having that good defense that Gus Bradley was a part of building, and then having a quarterback. And he's been to those 2 Super Bowls with Russell Wilson and hasn't done anything since then. And then you look at, it took him 2 years to even get to that. So not until year 3. So we're going into his year 77 season, and we may have success if we have the right GM who will give him a Hall of Fame back and a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's like, it's too many ifs. If we're going to do those kind of ifs, I'd rather take those chances with a young guy and the potential of a younger coach who, if works out, I will have 10, 15 years. The max you're going to get out of Pete Carroll, the very longest is 5. And that's stretching it. Him at 79 years old imagine that. 79 years as a head coach. I don't see that as a realistic possibility. And maybe he's a unicorn and it can happen for him, but nobody else has done it in the past. And why are we going to break the trend or break what's been happening in the past with Pete Carroll? I'm not doing it. I'm going to go with the trend that's been going around in the league. You hire a young offensive minded head coach, ideally. Now, if they want to go, or I prefer Mike McCarthy over Pete Carroll. If to be honest with you, and a lot of people say Mike McCarthy. They point to him having Aaron Rodgers. Pete Carroll had Russell Wilson. So if you want to go that route of a retread, Mike McCarthy. But yet and still, I'd rather just have a young guy that we bring in, and that is our guy. I'd rather do it that way.
Yeah, man. We could go on and on, man. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead and respond.
A quick rebuttal. Again, you said it right there. If it works out with a young coach, so that still puts us in the same situation. A young coach that comes in as an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator that we hire, and if it gets to be too much, or they can't handle it, or they're not winning, they're not getting the right pieces to work with, or they're not doing it the right way, we're back in the same situation again, where we're going to be, we're going to be looking for another head coach again. Am I saying that that's not going to happen with Pete Carroll? No, it very well could happen, but I think there's less of a chance to have that happen. Plus, don't forget, our team right now, with the current standing of our team and our roster, we're defensive heavy versus offensive heavy. We got a better defense than we do on offense. So we build something starting with on the defensive side, and then just not slowly, but bring in the right pieces for the offensive side to make it competitive, where our defense can have a shot to do better in this coming season. Look what we did against the 2 games against KC. We should have won probably both of those if a couple of things happened. One, our kicker, still paying the price for that because I hyped him all week long about being the best kickers in the league on our team. If our kicker didn't miss those 3 field goals, okay, a 9-point swing right there, we win that game. And if we had Wilkins all season and didn't get injured so early in the season, defense would have been even better. We would have won more games, guaranteed, with that defense rolling the way it was. Mm-hmm. So our defense is already putting us in a better position if everybody that's out injured comes back healthy. So now you've got that main piece of the puzzle is your defense is strong. We finished, 10 or 15 total at the end of the season, even with a mishmash of guys out there playing and free agents that we brought in like Chase on. And granted, I know we got a shit ton of free agencies, guys on the defensive side that we need to either not re-sign or we're going to sign, because I know there's some we do want and some we don't want. Mm-hmm. So I think our main building block right now is on the defensive side. Everybody's looking for the quarterback and everything. Quarterback ain't worth crap unless we bring in a running back. He ain't worth crap unless we bring in a number 1 wide receiver. I love Jacoby Myers, but he's not a number 1. He's a natural 2. He was forced into the 1 once DA was gone. We've got the tight end, yes, but we don't have the offensive line yet. You've got a center and a right tackle guaranteed. You've got a left tackle that's only got 1 more year left. He's a free agent at the end of this coming season. So now you got to worry about filling that void eventually. And we got 2 shitty-ass guards that we got to deal with. Parham, horrible. See you later. And then whoever's been playing on the left side, that's been a mishmash on the left side all season long, to the point where we had to put our center over there for the last 2 games and put that other idiot back at center, and it was horrible. So your easiest working part on this team is the defense. And everybody knows that defenses are going to help you go further in this league. They definitely do. Because without those defenses, your offense ain't worth shit. Because if you can't hold the team you're playing against to a respectable score and give your offense a chance, then why do we even bother playing the game? Because if our defense is trash, our offense ain't going to keep up with anybody right now. We know that. We're all not idiots. We realize that the offense is the weak point. So if he comes in, and remember, Pete Carroll's a defensive type of guy too, and he brings in the right people to work with him, this could get rolling faster than you think between free agency and in this draft, which is why I refuse to trade up in this draft to get one of these 2 quarterbacks. You stand pat at number 6 pick, or you trade and you move further back into the first round and accumulate picks to bring competition in and have competition for spots on this team and build from this draft. We've already got 10 picks in this draft, possibly 1 other if Patrick Graham gets hired as a head coach. So That's why I don't like giving up draft equity. I want draft equity. I want the chance to bring more guys in here and give whoever's going to be the head coach a chance with this GM to build this team through the draft and have us be competitive again, just in our division. I don't care what we do in the NFL, the rest of the league. I just want to be competitive in our division, because if we can't get out of the basement, it doesn't matter what we do in the rest of the league. It starts in our division. If we can't get a grip on any one of these three teams, you're screwed. You're going to be 0-6 again in our division. Anybody that's 0-6 in their own division still makes the playoff. How often does that happen?
Right. No,
facts. It doesn't. So we'll be forever at the bottom until we can get this team going in the right direction and win in our division. Everybody's like, oh, how are we going to fare up against this team and that team? I don't give a shit. I don't know how we're going to fare up against the three teams in our division, because right now those three teams are stacked compared to what we got. In all honesty, they are. All three teams made the playoffs. We had no shot at making the playoffs. After week 5, I knew that we weren't going to go anywhere because we just looked so disorganized. And it's the same old shit that it has been for years. Was AP in the wrong spot from the beginning? Yeah, he probably shouldn't have been the head coach. I think he was in over his head, especially once you had the 3 coaches in our division alone. He got out coached in our division alone. So I just think Pete Carroll coming in here would show no fear in this division. He's not afraid of those 3 coaches, and I think he could go to toe with all 3 of them right from the bat, right from the start of the season. No punches held. He's going to go for it. I'm telling you, because he will have that to prove, because that's the big talk because of his age.
But
I'll leave it at that.
But if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. You don't got to be afraid to get your ass whipped. You can still be not afraid and still go out there and get your ass whipped. So having no fear, that don't mean nothing to me. You can not be scared. Antonio Pierce had no fear of anybody either. And where is he? He's back in Compton. So I don't care about not having any fear. That doesn't mean anything to me. What can you do as a head coach? And especially with Pete Carroll, we're talking about, you said if, right? The difference between hiring Pete Carroll and hiring a young guy, there's variables there with both guys, right? If Pete Carroll wins, he's still likely gone in 3 years. If this young guy wins, we have a guy for the foreseeable future. That's a huge difference. A huge difference. Even if, so you're talking about, so you said, oh, if the young guy doesn't work out, then we're right back to where we are looking for another head coach. If Pete Carroll does work out, we're right back to where we were looking for another coach. That's the difference.
There you go, man. Hey, man, this has been a great back and forth. Y'all made some valid points. I get it. Severe. I hear where you're coming from. I kind of like, to be honest with you, just to chime in real quick, I kind of like the fact that, what Mitch said. We had Mitch earlier on the show, Mitchell Renz, and he said that maybe Carroll could be maybe an advisor, assistant head coach to a younger coach, and he could, help him grow as a coach. I kind of like that more than him being the head honcho, because, like Severe kind of said,
we just had that this past season, though. We just had that this past season, and it didn't work.
But do we have a Pete Carroll? Would you say Pete Carroll?
No, but you had a Marvin Lewis, you had a Norv Turner in there, you had Phil, but you had a shit ton of Norv
Turner. Yeah, Norv Turner was a great coordinator, but not a great head coach. Marvin Lewis is probably the best coach on the staff, but I get where you're coming from. There was a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
If you count Coughlin, probably
Coughlin, but he wasn't on the staff. He wasn't. That was more of AP just calling them every day and them talking. That's a whole different situation. But giving Pete Carroll just a role on the staff, I'm not saying give like 5 other head coaches a role on the staff where they're advising the young coach. I'm just saying Pete Carroll might have a lot of wisdom to give to a younger guy. We don't know what the negotiations would look like, or maybe Pete Carroll's head coach for 1 season, and the young guys, the guy that soon to be head coach is on staff, where he's grooming to be a head coach. We don't know what that discussions look like behind the scenes. It's just, there's a lot of what ifs, like the contract situation, all that. But like I said, it's been a great discussion. Severe, Jeff, New England Raider Booster Club, let the people know where they can find you, what to look forward to, all that good stuff, Jeff.
Find me at any_Raider Boosters. I'm on every Wednesday night with Jay, Just Raiders Baby, LV Raider 10, and Leo and myself. Raider Connection every Wednesday night at 10 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock. 10 o'clock Eastern time. Let's fuck that up. 10 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Pacific. And then every Thursday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. Myself and LV Raider 10 do our Raiders Coast to Coast show.
That's good. That's good. Oh, actually, before we head out too, let's playoffs this weekend. Who you guys got? Who do you guys have winning? Chiefs and the Bills. Let's start with you, Jeff.
I'm going Bills.
Bills?
I can't root for that. I can't pick the Chiefs.
I hope the Chiefs.
Yeah, I picked the Texans last week too.
Yeah, same here. Same here, man. So you got the Bills?
Nah, bro. Who I think gonna win, brother? I already said I'm putting my money where the ref put theirs, and that's with the Chiefs.
Where the refs bet their money.
That's exactly that's what I'm talking about. That's who the refs bet their money on. That's where I'm betting my money too.
Straight facts, 100%, man. It's not really.
Don't
It's
get
not
paid
the
from the NFL anymore.
Man, it's not the Bills versus the Chiefs. It's the Bills versus the refs, pretty much.
Refs, no.
And it's going to be a tough game for them. But the second game, NFC Championship, Eagles and the Commanders. Who you got, Jeff?
I got the Redskins. I don't call them the Commanders. They're still the Redskins to me. They always will be.
Oh, it's cool. HTTR.
Who you got, Severe?
I got the Washington Jaden Daniels for the win.
I want to see the kid make it to the Super Bowl as a rookie. I really do. I want to see the kid win. I like him. I like him. He's playing his ass off. In all honesty, I know we got Brock Bowers, but he deserves to be Rookie of the Year. Plain and simple. I know the playoffs don't count towards that voting, but
right. But we all know it's a quarterback's award, anyways. It's a quarterback award, anyways.
Always has been.
But they've won, and Jaden Daniels is having one of the best rookie quarterback seasons of all time, if not the best.
The best.
And he's
the best.
And on top of that too, but I gotta go with the Eagles, man. It's Cinderella story's over. You know what I mean? Like the Eagles are a super talented team. Saquon is playing out of his mind, and in the playoffs, you got to run the football, and that's what the Eagles are doing. I'm not sure if the Commanders are going to do that against the Eagles front, but we'll see, man. A lot can happen this weekend. You know, any given Sunday, anything can happen in the playoffs. But I think it's going to be the Eagles, and I'm hoping the Bills. I'm hoping it's the Bills, but the rest might have something to say about it. Man, we appreciate everybody coming through.
The football gods, the Bills. I can't deal with the Chiefs being back in the Super Bowl.
Yes, sir. But yeah, hey, make sure to clock in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Hey, man, we're gonna be doing a lot of these moving forward. We're gonna be collabing. We're gonna have people on. Just hit us up, let us know. And yeah, we appreciate everybody coming through, man. Hey, Severe, let the people know where they can find you, what to look forward to, all that good stuff.
First of all, hey, make sure if you haven't done so already, you make sure y'all go over and sub to Jeff. Dude was a good sport. He's coming into hostile territory. He knew both me and Pharaoh both didn't like Pete Carroll. So he came in expecting to get jumped. So, you know, he came in here and he was a good sport about it, man. He got Raider mentality. Anybody that has that amount of Raider gear in the New England area should be commended. So make sure y'all give him a sub for sure.
Yes,
y'all
sir.
know what it is with me. You know, at the Severe Raider here on YouTube, the Severe Raider on IG, on X, on TikTok, on Snapchat. Every Tuesday, the 50-50 show. My guy, Pharaoh. Also, I do a show, the Raider War Room with Protect the Shield. My guy Chris from Protect the Shield and 805 Raider. And then y'all are watching it right now, man. Around the Shield. This is a special live Around the Shield. Usually it's on Friday nights. This is a special live version. So, you know, you make sure you just hit the notification bells and y'all catch us, whenever we go live.
Yeah, yes, sir, man. Hey, look, like Severe said, every Tuesday, 50-50 show Around the Shield, usually every Friday, but it was a special edition live show. Also follow us on Around the Shield on social media, X and Instagram, where we post podcast clips, memes, all that good stuff. And yeah, man, and make sure, and also the 50/50 shop. Make sure to check that out for the latest gear and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, hey, it's been a great show. We'll do this again. Jeff, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Severe, thanks, brother.
Yeah,
no hard feelings. Brother. I'm cool.
Oh yeah.
We didn't really get heated.
Like we're probably
I'm just passionate about my team. It's been too long, so that's all.
I feel you. Hey, I'm the same way, man. Like, and from all reports, it's pointing to the direction of them hiring your preferred candidate. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. Don't mean I agree with it,
and I won't.
But I wouldn't.
When it happens, I won't be saying I told you so.
I just hope that
I'll leave it until it happens.
I just hope that Spytek is gonna be official. You know what I mean? I don't want to lose out on Spytek.
I'm looking at the chat right now. Leo, I ain't spitting no bars, man. I put it on IG. But my guy, All Eyes on G said Tom Pelissero reported that Spytek signed his deal.
Whew, man.
I'll see it on a respectable news service before I say anything.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Pelissero is usually official. Tom Pelissero is pretty good. I think he was one of the people that was saying.
Guys. I trust him, and I trust them more than I do Schefter. Schefter's
yeah.
I won't say much about him.
Yeah, man. We'll see, man. We gotta wait till the Raiders announce it. Once the Raiders announce it, then we'll know it's official. Because what happened last year with Kingsbury? I mean, all of the biggest media outlets, all the Adam Schefters, the Ian Rappaports, all that stuff. But that being said, I just hope that we can lock him in because he seems like he's a really good talent evaluator. And right now we need some talent on this football team. So hopefully he'll be able to get that quarterback situation fixed up, and then hopefully we get our head coach. I think that might be what the holdup is. I think they might want to announce it at the same time or have that pressure with the GM and the head coach. They did that the last couple of head coach and GM hires, but we'll be on the lookout. Make sure to tune in. We'll be back next week, next Tuesday, 50/50 show, and obviously Around the Shield. Appreciate everybody coming through. It's been a great show. Any last thoughts before we head out?
I'm good. Just go Raiders.
Go Raiders, man. Hey, man, all that matters, man, at the end of the day, man.
Just win, baby. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
Peace.
Respect your elders. It's not head coach.
Just win, baby.
Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.